Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I'm Andy Signor giving you FanDome coverage, and I'm so excited to have my man Damien's here with me. Hey, Damien.
What's up, Andy? How
Thanks
you doing?
for Skyping in. So you got to watch this Multiverse panel, and they got to reveal some images of The Flash. We're going to go through both of these, give you a recap reaction to what happened. The first thing I want to point out as we brush through this and then try to get to our Suicide Squad panel next, what was really interesting is finally seeing some people in charge of DC. I don't know if you noticed, Damien, but it was pretty amazing. We had Tiffany Smith hosting, but they introduced Greg Berlanti as head of sort of television, CWverse. Then they introduced Walter Hamada, who's in charge of DC Films. And then they introduced Jim Lee, who they said was basically in charge of all of DC, is what they've officially now announced. Now, I guess this was sort of understood, but I was very actually happy to see it laid out clearly now of like, okay, these are the three people who are in charge. And maybe I just didn't know, but Damien, did you officially feel like you knew that was what was happening over there?
You know, I mean, when they mentioned Yamada in the beginning, you know, it was kind of like he was going to come in and add some guidance to the whole thing. But it was, you know, like what you think about it. And we've always said about this in the past that, you know, the TV and then the film universe and, you know, they always seem to never like necessarily play together. And actually until Crisis did we even see a glimpse that it could actually happen. And to see them talking about it and actually sharing ideas was like, oh, wow, because you know, there's a lot of concern. When DC started off, it didn't start off necessarily on the foot that everyone could agree with. But we were always thinking, man, you know, those Marvel guys, they got a plan. They've got it all banged out. They're communicating with each other.
Yep.
And you can see that this gives me reassurance that these guys are talking to each other. They are aware of a story that needs to happen. And that is good news for any DC fan.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because, look, I'm not complaining. I actually was grateful to see them finally come together and take some step out and take some, you know, own it, right? Which I think we need to see more of in DC. Like, let these guys come out and be more vocal. Berlanti has been, obviously, but I feel like I haven't ever seen Walter Hamada out. I've seen Jim Lee sort of, but to have them come out, it was just refreshing. And it was nice because they actually, you got to sense, I know you watched it too, but they talked about how they got Ezra Miller for the Multiverse and for DC, for Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I made a note, like, we never thought we could do that. And then we got a call from the guys, could we fit in Ezra? This was Berlanti talking, implying that they were asking him. And then it wasn't Ezra's doing. It was like, you know, Walter and Jim sort of saying, hey, could we do this? It was a week before it was done. Was the other thing that was sort of amazing about it. But it also just, it was clear, like, no one really knew. They were okay with it. They did it. But it was sort of like this last-minute add-on. They're like, well, should we just do this? I guess let's do it. And again, I'm not saying that complaining, but it does seem like they're finally sort of combining their efforts and stepping in to attempt to organize things and open it up, knowing, you know what, we have this crisis. This is our last shot. Let's get Ezra in. Will he do it? Ezra, of course, said, yeah, I'm in. What do I do? But Jim apparently was the one who was like, yeah, let's run with this. Let's do it. But did you get a sense it was sort of like they were figuring it out as they were going along, Damien, like I did?
I think so. But I think they also kind of mentioned later on, they're like, well, up until now it was taboo. You can't have your movie stars show up on your TV shows. You can't have your TV shows show up in your movies. How often would you want to see Daredevil in a Marvel? And it was like, no, they'll never appear in a Marvel film. How often there was always this taboo. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did it a little bit, but really, and they kind of mentioned it, it's like, well, we can't have this character because we're going to have a movie for that character years later. And it's like, why can't you use that character? So I feel like, yes, it was kind of last minute. It was like, can we do this? Yeah, there's no rules against it. But there has always been this like unspoken rule between TV and film that these guys can't cross over. And now that they've embraced it, even if it was a last minute thought, even if, you know, sometimes you're in football and you're like, yo, I got to call an audible.
Yeah.
I see the field. I see what we're doing. Let's do it. Let's call an audible. And it becomes like the greatest play that you see. And that's what I consider that. That was two coaches or two team leaders going, let's pull an audible. Let's just do something different. And it cracked open all these new possibilities that we have.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned that. I'm glad you brought that up because I was trying to go through my notes. But yeah, they were saying that he didn't. Luckily, Ezra still fit in the suit, but they got approval at the last minute. And then they talked about how the sort of TV and film side were always like, well, can we use this person? Can we use that person? There clearly have been dialogues or sort of, I don't know, can you? Let's figure it out. But you're right. It seems like the coaches are finally teaming up and say, yeah, you know what? Take it. Why not? We should be running with this, especially if we're making that Flash movie. It was interesting. They said when they did it, they were like, yeah, we have to make sure it wasn't, he made a point of like, not to set up too many expectations. That was the one thing I made. He was sort of his note when they were talking about it, which I thought was a smart note, because it was clearly like, this is not confirmed. We don't have a plan. Don't get used to this. But you know what? Yes, let's do it, because that might actually help what we're doing. And then if for some reason it doesn't, it was a fun little Easter egg for fans. They also went on to really explain the multiverse, obviously, which we know. But they made a point of saying, like, Joker does not exist in this world. It's on its own world. But now the TV and movie versions of the Flash can coexist. The fans can have it all. And I love that. To me, if anything, it's like I think they're reading the room and seeing how divisive DC is becoming, just the fandoms. And I've been guilty of it in my past over at Screen Junkies, and obviously experiencing a lot of negativity these days recently. But it's like, why can't we all get along? Why can't we all coexist? Like, have multiple universes. I like this one better than that one. It's sort of a brilliant way for them to finally open that up, right, and accept it and let us move forward as fans, hopefully get to another place. So he admitted, Joker doesn't exist, but, Matt Reeves' upcoming year 2 Batman, he's also in another place. And what's so nice is now that we have HBO Max, it opens up possibilities of, you guys might have heard about this Gotham PD show that is in the works. Yeah, well, we can make that without that affecting Aquaman. And the fact that they now sort of have that flexibility, it is nice, because they can take more risks, hopefully. And they talked about which characters, I guess the Flash panel, which we'll get to in a second, talked about which ones they want to go in the multiverse. But it was nice to see them finally all acknowledging the fact that this was important. And Greg Berlanti, the other thing I want to mention, and I'll go back to you about this multiverse panel before we get to Flash. Greg also made a point, which I thought was nice to hear. We don't want this Crisis on Infinite Earth to become a thing that happens all the time. We don't want to take. We can't let that be taken for granted. It can't be something we crank out year after year, is what he said. And it was very nice to hear that, because it's very easy for that. I wasn't a huge fan of Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I loved the idea of it. And he also mentioned that was sort of the point of that, was to sort of help them sort of just bring down the universes that suddenly had opened up for themselves, to make it easier for them as storytellers. So, it was interesting. And the last thing I note, and then I'm back to you for final thoughts in this panel, and then we'll jump onto the Flash artwork, which was badass. But they said, they asked specifically, could we get more multiverse standalone films like Red Sun? And Walter said, yes, like, absolutely. We're not confirming Red Sun. That's not in the works, but we want to deal with the right filmmaker. The right filmmaker can come in with the right idea, and now this allows us to do multiple stories in multiple ways, like Todd Phillips did with Joker. And so to me, I'm like, yes. Not a lot of reveals, no real reveals in this multiverse panel, but just a sense of calm of like, okay, there's people behind the scenes who are doing it. So thoughts on that before we move on to Flash, Damien?
Well, I thought that's actually one of the best parts about it is I'm glad I'm speaking to the heads, because if it was coming from, let's say, reps or actors or something like that, then, from the totem pole standpoint, that's not where those decisions are made. And I like that they were saying that, look, it does crack open a big universe and it does allow for independent films to be made. But I really do like when they were like, look, this is just a season, a crossover or something like that. That's a rare little gem, a little dessert that you'll get, and you only have that like once a year or whatever the case is, or not once a year in cinematically, but once in a blue moon. But the possibility, even though, again, we're not getting Red Sun, but the possibility that you could even get the same actor playing a different version of Superman. Of course, I'm looking at Henry Cavill right now. But the thing is that you can now do this. It does calm things down. It does, I think, from a fan base, we're no longer in conflict with each other if we can really embrace that multiverse. Because if you like the cartoons, or if you like Doom Patrol, you can like what you like, take what you want, leave what you don't want, and at the same time, or you can exist in a world where it's like, I'm greedy, I'll gobble it all up, I want it all, give me all the DC in all of its forms, give it to me. So I love that.
Yeah, so it was very exciting, and then the most exciting part was then they went to they did a very quick Flash panel, which I wish was a little bit longer, but obviously it hasn't shot yet. It's still early stages. But what was interesting about the Flash panel was that they zoomed ahead, and we got to finally see Ezra Miller, who I guess is definitely coming back as Flash. There had obviously been questions of, are they going to bring Ezra Miller back? It's given the controversy, but it's important that we sort of point out, nothing was officially complained about him. So I'm glad we're sort of just, all right, well, let's move forward. There's nothing official that we need to worry about. But here he was, loving the fans and showing up. It was nice to see him back. And they had the screenwriter, and they had Andy Muschietti, the writer, the director, and then Barbara Muschietti, producer. This is the writer. I forget her name. I missed that, but she's writing the film. And it was nice to see them sort of together. It's clear Andy Muschietti is a fan. I didn't realize, and they sort of made a point to point out that there were Easter eggs of DC Easter eggs in it, which was kind of fun. They like playing Batman, and there were mentions of it. You look like Clark Kent. And so they sort of were helping, whether this is true or not, it was sort of nice for them to reiterate, like, he's a fan. Like, this is a fan coming in who's so excited about building this. And then the big reveal, obviously, was he came and revealed these images, which they look pretty awesome to me. This was our first, the new suit, as he said, is what we're seeing here for Flash. And hold on, let me make sure I lift this up a bit more. That's the new suit, and we got a close-up then. Actually, I can zoom in on this so we get a sense there. I like it. It's less bulky and pieces coming off like the other one. So it's nice to see him sort of in this new attire. And then we got this close-up of him in the suit again. It does feel more like a comic Flash to me than the one, no disrespect to Snyder, but I wasn't crazy about that one. And so this is an interesting new look. But then this was to not bury the lead. Whew! Here he is fighting with Batman with the Flash up there. And guys, that's Michael Keaton's Batman, whether they're admitting it or not. That's
the ears.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the ears. Like, no way. The fact that they're going to do Flashpoint with Michael Keaton Batman showing up, I mean, Damian, that's badass.
That's my new wallpaper right now.
I mean, they tricked me. It might, who knows, but I mean, look at that. That looks sick. And they've made it, they didn't announce Michael Keaton, which is really weird. They let that come out in a Vanity Fair article and then didn't do a big to-do in this panel. To me, it was weird. It was weird to not have this as a big showy thing. And then, by the way, Multiverse, here's Andy Muschietti coming in. Awesome. It's not, my only worry is while we got to see who's in charge of everything else, like, I still like, who was in charge of all this? You know what I mean? Like, how did that news not come here, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so FanDome's pre-taped, right? And even whether the ink just dried on the Michael Keaton or the ink had dried and they weren't ready to announce it, but they couldn't get Michael Keaton in for the panel. There could be a number of reasons why Michael Keaton couldn't have showed up for that panel, and he may show up later. But but obviously they designed this with him in mind because his pose, his ears, everything about that is the Michael Keaton Batman and not the Batfleck Batman in that position right there. On one note on the suit, though, I do want to mention. The only concern that came to me, and I don't think they're going to do it because I think they've learned their lesson, Green Lantern's suit looked very similar to this, where it had the power lines going through it.
Good point.
And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, please don't tell me they're giving him a CG suit. We've come a long way since then.
Well said.
I don't want Ezra Miller's head on a CG body.
Oh, you said now that you say that, I can't unsee the. You're right. The Ryan Reynolds body lines. I because it's illustrated. I didn't jump to that conclusion, but you're so correct.
Right. So that was my only concern. That being said, I know that LED technology has come a long way, and they're able to now do micro LEDs inside of suits. Suit technology and what they're able to do with costumes now is just, even since then. I mean, Green Lantern did its thing, but I hope they've learned their lesson from that. I hope this is practical with green lines on it and they augment the power lines to it. I don't care how they do it, but a practical suit, please.
Amen. But overall, those two panels were very fascinating to me, and I think worthy. It just again, I'm trying not to complain, but I'm just confused why they didn't make this a bigger 1-2 punch of introducing the future of TV film and the flat, and then have a reveal. There's clearly more behind the scenes. Maybe the rumors, the sources I've been told are well, no, he confirmed it in Vanity Fair. He did. Yeah. He confirmed that Michael Keaton's in. So it's weird that. I guess maybe the pre-tape and then both of them sort of signed up after they taped it. That's the problem with pre-taping Comic-Cons. The news is always ongoing. But that said, props to this. It was nice to see Ezra and the gang sort of there talking about this, and I am getting hyped for this movie. This movie could really, really, really step up to be an amazing... Because you got to remember, back in the day, there was talk of Robert Zemeckis doing this Flash movie, and again, like, I was hyped then. I'm like, oh, cool. What if they do like a Flash, like Back to the Future, like a big, fun, time travel, epic, superhero adventure movie? And now they're going to do it. And they're like, yeah, oh, by the way, we're putting Michael Keaton in there. Dude, this has all the ingredients of something being really special. And it seems like everyone involved is a fan. They're really taking the time. They had more time now with the time off. Man, my fingers are crossed for this. So final words from you, Damien. Are you as excited as I am?
Dude, I'm actually very, very excited. I'm a bigger Batman fan, and the fact that Batman's always been a pin in the Justice League, but the fact that they're doing this, the possibilities just blow my mind that they're doing this, because I would have never thought they would have gone this route. Like even in my wildest dreams when we first started seeing the new Justice League and the new DC universe coming out, never in my wildest dreams would I thought that we'd have gotten a possibility of Michael Keaton in a Flashpoint and Ezra Miller getting a chance to really show some of his, because he's a great actor and he does have great acting chops, but him to actually play that note of the mother loss, I think we're going to get a adventure that has some serious heart. And I'm super excited about everything that they've announced about this so far.
Yeah, so they talk about how, Superman lost his homeworld, Batman lost his family. The only character who can actually go back to stop that is the Flash. And we've seen that story before on television, but to see that in a big budget sort of cinematic spectacle, sign me up. Again, I'm still like not sold on Ezra Miller's Flash. Like I don't dislike him, but I hope this is an opportunity to really find his way. As like you just said, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. But I also like, they talk. The other one thing we'll mention here, they talk about that scene where Barry Allen, Flash in the TV show, Grant Gustin meets Ezra Miller, and how they sort of met. It took them very quick, a week before the show aired to film that. But when they mentioned that scene again and talked about it, I didn't realize it. I first watched it. I just missed it. But he's like, Ezra Miller didn't never call himself the Flash. So when he's confused, and they talked about this, Grant Gustin basically names Ezra Miller's Flash the Flash in that scene right there, and sort of sets the tone and sort of sets everything else. And when you realize that, and they sort of reminded me, I'm like, that was kind of cool. Like it was a nice little homage to Grant Gustin, who I totally love. I love that show. And so for them to sort of be able to meet in that moment and sort of have that special fan moment that actually does parlay now into the future of, oh, I'm the Flash. That's where I got the name. Yeah. I met another Flash, and I like that name. I'm keeping it.
Yes,
it was cool.
It's forever part of his backstory in the theatrical sense. It's forever part of his backstory, and I thought that was like, wow, I didn't realize that actually that made that scene that much more important to the future of DC, because it's in cement now.
Yep.
Ezra Miller's Flash got his name from the TV show.
Yeah, no, and Ezra better shape up and not mess up. Like, dude, he had his warning. Like, get your ducks in order. Don't mess this up. You have the opportunity to do something amazing here with a character that's going to potentially go some amazing places. I hope that was a slap to the face of like whatever went down. Like, enough. Let's make this right. Yeah.
Given this director's passion for DC and the way they were talking about it, you could tell. Like Ezra Miller's, if you want to just consider him a tool, an acting tool, he's got all the right things to do it. Given a good script and given a good director to take that tool and sharpen it and really use it the way it's supposed to, he could be probably the best rendition of Flash we've seen so far. He has that potential. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's not a diss at Zack Snyder either. Like Zack Snyder introduced him, and it is what it is. But he hasn't really had a chance to shine. Right, exactly. So, he is still a sharpening phase.
About a lot of the characters in the DC universe. Some of them, like Aquaman, people may have not liked his film, but his chance to shine really did happen in his own film.
I agree.
So, Ezra Miller's chance to shine as a Flash most likely will be in Flashpoint.
Yeah, I'm excited. So stay tuned. So again, worthy panel, exciting panel that they did all this. Thank God. It is nice so far. The Wonder Woman panel was fun. This is fun. We got more. Stay tuned. I will be reporting to you throughout the day, so be sure to subscribe, follow. We're going straight into our Just Suicide Squad panel, which we're already a little bit late to, so stay tuned. We'll be uploading us soon on that one as well. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.